Hi, and welcome back to the search session. Today, we are going to have a person that we can say made history of search. Why? Because he was working on Bing and he was one of those person who substantially created Bing Webmaster. This wonderful professional now is has grown, has grown a lot. It's not just working on search, even if search still is his main core occupation. However, now he is the COO, Chief Operation Officer of LynxPulse, founder and CEO of UnboundAnswers, offering his consulting service as a fractional CMO and SME. And maybe the best work, one of the best workable right now, is a freelance drone certified pilot. So if you need someone who really can control a drone, this is
I'm happy
Duane
to.
Forrester. How are you doing?
Gianluca, I am awesome. Thank you very much for having me on the show today.
I could also have added that, okay, it's more an hobby, but you're also quite expert in crafting guitars.
Yeah, in fact, I was in my shop this morning doing some work for a client of mine, one of my neighbors. His son purchased a guitar from me earlier in the year, and he wants a modification done to it. So I was out there doing some metal work, trying to figure out how to give this guy what he wants. I don't have the solution yet, but I will figure it
Well,
out.
yes, maybe I should start to ask to be paid for when someone asking me to paint some minis that I paint.
I'll tell you,
Maybe.
mine is on display in the house. It is beautiful, and I think of you every time I walk by it. So I think for sure that there is something there. You know how ChatGPT does those? They do the little dolls in the plastic wrapper thing. It's just
Mhm.
an image, but it looks like an action figure of you or me or anything. You could do that in real life, and there's less danger because there's no data associated with it. Although you could embed an RFID chip with information that if I held it up would sync with a phone and give somebody a virtual business card. There
Oh,
you
yes.
go. That could
Well,
be fun.
that would be cool. And
Right.
so we started also very strong with ChatGPT and unconventional ideas. And what came to your mind almost 3 years ago when ChatGPT announced, when OpenAI announced to the world the coming of
Oh,
ChatGPT?
I had a range of thoughts. The first one for me, it was kind of expected. I spent some of my time when I was at Microsoft. I worked very small amount with the team that was building Cortana. So I had some early exposure to what machine learning looked like in terms of training the systems. It wasn't particularly deep and it wasn't particularly intelligent. And my portion of that was a very small part, but it opened my eyes to what was coming because within a year, we had Cortana on Windows phones and you could have a conversation with it. Very limited, but there was still some utility there. And so when OpenAI brought ChatGPT to the world, I thought, huh, okay, this is interesting. The genie's out of the bottle. This is no longer something that is going to be run or owned or contained within the large tech companies as we know them at that time 3 years ago. 3 years ago, Perplexity didn't exist. And today, Perplexity is very much a part of the conversation in the world of search. Like it or not, it's in that conversation. And that was kind of like a moment where I thought, okay, here we go. Now we have some practical utility. This is going to change things and it's going to continue to change things at a very fast pace. And then I immediately thought, oh, crap. I got to go learn so much more stuff, so many new things, so many new ideas, so many new directions. What is this going to impact? How is it going to impact it? And so on. And then I realized I just had to go and start using it, understanding where it was at that time, how I could use it best, how that fit in with the landscape, what businesses need to consider. All of those pieces were going through my mind. And Now I'm kind of sitting here thinking, I feel like I can almost keep up. I can see the front edge, and I still have to sprint hard to keep up with where things are evolving and how fast they're evolving. But I think my biggest feeling right now with it all is there's a very defined layer of fear that I feel. And that fear is, well, we have, I think it's safe to say, maybe hundreds of thousands of SEOs or people who call themselves SEOs. The vast majority, 98% of those people are not equipped to deal with what's happening, this change that's happening now and that will be happening over the next couple of years. They will probably lead businesses into bad decisions. They will miss opportunities. Businesses will suffer as a result of this. We have businesses that themselves simply will not embrace change, whether that's because the founders and the operators are old and set in their ways, or they're young and don't know what they don't know and are stuck in one particular direction thinking that's all they need. I'm not sure how it plays out for everybody, but I can pretty much guarantee that we're about to see a lot of upheaval, lot of change. And I'm at one moment excited by that, and in another moment I'm a little frightened by it.
I have the same feelings, sincerely. Um, from one side, okay, I am happy to return to a state where I'm a student
Yeah,
because
that's
this is great for me. And I think what we are an advantage because we are older students. So it's more difficult to return into the mentality of studying new things, but we grow with a methodology. We have memory of the past. So we can
yes.
eventually we have our brain that is its own muscle. Hopefully this is
Yes.
not always so, neither in my case. But on the other hand, yes, scary, not really scary. It's more a feeling of uncertainty. For
Yeah,
instance,
that's right. Yeah, that's fair.
uh, for instance, one common big doubt, big interrogation mark is how the hell we can measure things in this situation, because we don't have
Right.
actually any good tool. So let's do some science fiction SEO.
Right.
Let's say that
Yes.
Microsoft is calling you, okay, to USA, hey, Duane, you did a great thing in Bing, but we
Mhm.
need to redo it because
Right.
we must show
Yep.
to website owners what
Mhm.
the hell is happening with website because of ChatGPT, OpenAI, Perplexity, all these sources that
Mhm.
are referral, are not referral, are organic, are not organic, what they are. What
Right.
if you when you are thinking, because I'm sure you are thinking about these things, what kind of metrics do you consider?
So this is fascinating, Gianluca, because I have written a couple of articles on my Substack recently that kind of touch exactly on this. And I have two more articles coming out over the next couple of weeks that will go very much deeper into attention spans and what optimization looks like for a world of generative AI search solutions. If I put my hat on again, when I was like senior product marketing manager at Microsoft, built and launched Webmaster Tools, we had a really good idea of what the metrics were that everybody wanted to see. I had a good idea because I was an SEO and I knew what I wanted, what I made decisions around. And so I tried to bring that to the market through Webmaster Tools. Folks do have to recognize that everything that I put down on the list that I said I wanted, not all of that was allowed to be shared. Some of what I said I wanted for the SEO tools was obviously proprietary information. And at the search engine, we decided that wasn't shareable. So we didn't get those metrics. There will always be metrics internally that we want, but we won't get, basically. I have a hypothesis, and it is strictly my own guess and opinion, but I have a suspicion that if Google could rewind the clock, they would go back to the early days and maybe not share as much information with webmasters and businesses and SEOs, it's put them in a position of having to continually share, which means continually adding more information and exposing more information, which then just makes deeper conversations that go further, takes more time, more resources, and so on. I think from the business's standpoint, what we've seen is some of that data is less decision-making data. It's more informational data. And I think that what businesses need to focus on first and foremost, we have this view as SEOs that like we should be getting analytics from, G4A and from, Webmaster Tools and Google Search Console and the Ahrefs and all these other sources. We should be getting that stuff. And that's the information that we need to base all our decisions around. And I'd think of that as like third-party decision-making, because you're making decisions from the data from the third party. Your own data is as strong or stronger in a lot of cases for making decisions. We see this in the real world every time a product you like disappears from the store shelves. When that product goes away, that product didn't go away because the manufacturer said, oh, you know what? Duane really likes this. I think I'm going to mess with Duane. Let's get rid of that product. No, it's because Duane was the only one who liked it and no one else liked it. And it wasn't worth them pursuing it just for the money Duane paid. So I think there's a lot of that internal data, that first party data that really becomes important for businesses, especially today. It's harder to see what's happening on an AI powered search result. Doesn't matter where it's coming from. Referrals from a place like ChatGPT are weird and not straightforward. You're talking about an environment where the whole point of the environment is to keep you there and give you the answer, the direct answer. If there's a link included, that's nice. But I think most consumers aren't clicking on the links, may not even recognize that they're there, or they do see them and think, great. I trust the answer because if I want to verify it, I can click the link and I can go verify it. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's our reality today. The key metric though, and Gianluca, the key metric, it's your money, it's your conversions, whatever that is. This is the key thing beyond anything else, staying focused on this and staying focused on muting your microphone, because when your microphone is muted, it's hard for people to get the
Yes.
message.
Yeah. Sorry. No, what I was saying is, mm, yeah, conversion surely is a queen metric.
Oh yeah.
But because it's inevitable, clients, your stakeholders always will need to understand how to allocate budget.
Oh,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
so in fact, it's an idea that I'm ruminating, really literally ruminating in my brain. And it's conversion and maybe ranking neither position, the classic average position of Google Search Console, let's say, are valid anymore. Because for instance, AIO, every link is position
Yep.
one.
Yep.
So maybe the real metric should be something similar to average visibility. So average visibility for topics, or find a way to see the topics and see the visibility of a website in the topics for, let's say, a statistically interesting and valid number of
Mhm.
potential queries. And from there, seeing, not at all an analytical person, but find a formula in order to find correlation between visibility and conversion, and or visibility, brand, because we will still receive traffic from branded searches, for instance, or classic search. So connecting metrics coming from many different channels, and
Oh
not
yes.
having only the metrics for one channel, which is not
Yes.
possible to connect to the metrics of, let's say, uh, uh, TikTok metrics or TikTok analytics or meta analytics. Find a way to combine these in order to see that if visibility maybe it's not sending to you traffic because this is
Mhm.
something we already see that you receive just a tiny percentage of traffic from ChatGPT or Perplexity or even Gemini and AIO. AIO is in the mouth of everybody now because of a CTR disgrace. But
And
yes, I have also theory there.
I listen,
Uh,
when we talk about the results of what we're all seeing as an industry from AIO and these kinds of solutions, every complaint is one side of a coin because the other side of that coin, okay, the side of the coin that says the click-through rate is low, the zero-click searches is expanding, I'm not getting traffic, that side of the coin is balanced against the other side of the coin, which is Google saying search share is dropping or flattening, and we need to increase revenue. This is how it happens. So that attention comes from somewhere because today, the entire economy of what we're engaged in, we think it's around dollars. We think it's around cost per click and dollars and revenue in terms of money. It's actually in terms of attention. That's the real economy. And that's the other side of that coin. So when we have a low click through rate and Google has a high capture rate, they are winning in attention. And that matters more than outright dollars. So like I see both sides of this and this is part of the reason for me having a layer of fear, right? Like you talk about how we shift budgets and what we change to, like there's two really big important things. First off, I just released an article on Monday where I have a graph in there that I created a fictional budget. What it looks like today as an SEO, and then what it should look like if you're focused on AI search as your world that you're a part of. And let me tell you, a lot of the traditional things that you would have in your budget as an SEO simply do not exist. And there are completely new things that you need to put your money into and your resources into in today's new world and moving forward. And there's a good reason for it. Traditional search has still got trillions of queries completely globally across all of search everywhere. But if you look at things that are generative AI powered, that's like well into the hundreds of billions of queries and growing at a much faster, steeper curve than traditional search, which is starting to flatten. So we see that happening. We see that change happening. And it's really important that people understand that. So that's like the first one. The second one, and you mentioned this, is the fracturing of where people are and how people are coming to get answers, whether that's on Snap or TikTok, or they're going to Reddit first or whatever. That is having a measurable impact, if not on outright search query volume, it is having a measurable impact on people's behavior because people are retraining that skill of information retrieval that we've all been taught over the last 30 years. It's a new skill set given to humankind, digital information retrieval. That skill set is now getting refined. And we're not coming at this saying, oh, Google's a verb. It's my spot. There we go. I'm going to go Google that. No, 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 no. Gen Alpha, Gen Z, and, a big part of millennials have already gone over that and they're not using this approach now. It's a much broader, multi-sourced approach. And they don't care if they get the answer in a short form video on YouTube or on TikTok or on Instagram. They just, this is where I am. I'm comfortable. The app was open. I asked my question to get my answer. And that's our world. We cannot rely on what we thought of as traditional search being the core driver 3 years from now. Over the next couple of years, we'll see that trending flattening off for a lot of companies. And I think maybe sooner than that for most companies.
yeah, in fact, and just as can sound as an anecdote, but the younger people don't even know what does it mean. I Google it
I
because
look, I have a story that I will share. It's not my story. It's Michael Bonfill's story.
Well,
He went to his daughter's school one day and they were having like, parent day at the school. And he went in and the teacher said, "What do you do?" Michael explained, "Oh, I run an international SEO company. I help people get ranked highly on Google. And then when you search for something on Google, my clients are there at the top and that helps their business be successful." And one of his daughter's friends sitting in the front row raised her hand, and Michael looked at the teacher and said, "Yeah, okay, let's do Q&A." And she said, "What's Google? I hear my parents talking about it all the time, but I don't know what it is." And and I encourage people, reach out to Michael and ask him to explain what his reaction was in that moment. The reaction was equal parts of shock and fear. In that moment, he says he realized that the future is going to be vastly different than what we're expecting because we literally have the lifespan of that child until they get their first job and start becoming a consumer, or even when they start becoming a consumer, which is happening younger and younger, because you don't necessarily need a job to get money as a child. You're a cute little kid. People give you money for your birthday and whatnot. Then you want to go spend it. You definitely have opinions on where you want to spend that and how you're going to find the things you want to buy. Unfortunately, I think for all of us, there are, and to be fair, this is a sample of one single individual child. So it, is not an analogy for the entire generation, but we didn't see that 2 generations ago. That was just not a behavior that we saw. And today we hear this story more and more. So
yeah, yes, indeed. Well, in fact, mm, you surely know the model of a messy middle that Google invented a few years ago, and it was clearly just customized to its own experience. So they
mhm,
trigger something happening outside, and then people obviously going into search mode and exploration, consideration, up until going finally to. And
mhm.
that was an interesting model, but actually the messy middle is exploded
Oh yeah.
because the trigger can be anything. I mean, it can be anything from you know uh, an advertisement on TV or on YouTube or
Mhm,
a video of an influencer on
mhm,
TikTok, anything.
mhm.
The loop between
Yeah.
consideration and discover and consideration is it's really jumping from one place to another and
Oh yeah.
can also even finish offline.
Mhm.
The exit is maybe not the website, it's shop
Exactly.
of, like not the website of Zara, a shop of Zara.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly.
and this is something that I must be admit, it's something that in Italy we started to say, okay, this is the messy middle is not just Google, it's expanding.
Mhm.
Just a few years ago, we started to
Mm.
see exactly around ChatGPT coming out. And, and so we also started to consider that the figure of SEO should not be just about classic search, but
Right.
neither about classic search versus AI search. It's
Yeah.
about search as a concept. So
Yes. Broader, higher level.
exactly,
Yes.
because it's it, it knowing, mastering the art and science
Mhm.
of how people search for fulfilling their desires,
Mhm.
dreams, needs, whatsoever,
Yeah.
and guide clients, the company
Mhm.
in touching all the potential search
Yeah.
journey steps of a search journey that can become the customer journey. So
Mhm.
this is what I think. The reason why, for instance, my own website is I love SEO, but SEO you can read below it's search experience optimization, not
Right.
search engine optimization, which
Exactly.
is fun. It's fun because this is a concept quite old. It's not
Yeah.
even invented maybe because I remember Matt Katz
Yeah.
talking of search experience optimization back in the days.
Exactly.
And I remember one talk you did in a conference we were sharing together. It was in Dallas, I think.
Hmm.
And you were talking about how SEO, and it was pre-COVID era.
Hmm.
So in the boom of SEO somehow. And he
Right.
was advising all of us that we needed to change the definition of our work because it was not enough for convincing the stakeholder of our
Yep.
value. Somehow reminds me of what, for instance, Mike King recently started with a sort of campaign of we must change our definition. We must not define as SEO anymore. We must call ourselves relevance engineer, which is
Yep.
a little bit convoluted for me as a definition, but I understand the idea.
Exactly.
So, how will you define the work of an SEO in this changing moment? What do you define it as? Is not just SEO.
Right.
Is cannot be someone who does the work of everybody else because it would crazy would be illogical.
Mm-hmm.
What where do you see the evolution of the professional SEO to be?
So this is a really interesting idea and question. I don't have a final answer, but several thoughts have been occurring to me over the last couple of years, especially the last 3-ish years with generative AI being a part of what we're doing. Look, you can argue with me that ChatGPT is not search. In a traditional sense, it's not. However, maybe the traditional sense is not how we should be defining things. Perhaps the concept of search, literally the concept of search at its core is about finding something you're interested in. I have gone back to talking about information retrieval. And the reason that I've done this is in my mind, it sits a layer above search as we have it defined now. So when I use information retrieval, I think about it in broader terms. All of us every day are involved with information retrieval as human beings. It's what we do. We have senses that literally collate information for our brain that on one level help us survive, on another level help us with comfort, on another level help us with success or with intellectual pursuits, whatever it is that we are trying to search for or find, these senses help us do that. And I think that in the future, we may not be called SEOs. We might be, information retrieval specialists, which I don't like because there's way too many letters and words and syllables in there. We may get more aligned with if AI is developing agents, then we ourselves may be the human agent of some kind that is a part of this. If your AI agent is designed to go do all of the grunt work, all of the dirty level work of, actually finding the information, collating the information, knowing what matters to me on a personal level and giving that back to me, and essentially lessening the cognitive workload of information retrieval. If that's what the AI agent's job is to do, then my job is to help that agent include me as the best answer to a question. And so we may be agent optimization. We may be agent support. Don't know what we end up with as titles in the future, but I do know this. If you are an SEO and you define yourself as an SEO and you hold on to that title, look, we're all friends here on the show and, listening to each other, we can describe ourselves as SEOs. We get that. We understand it. But if you're talking about your boss and the stakeholders and the resource people, the people who decide where the budgets go and the work that ultimately is going to get done, when you're having those conversations, you may not want to call yourself an SEO because now you are telling everyone you're from a distant time in the past. And you really don't want that. You want to illustrate to people that there is a way forward and that it has to do with embracing these systems. I'm writing an article right now. And one of the things that I very cheekily say in the article is I talk about, the crawling and what's happening with AI agents and the AI systems today. And just as a side note, I asked the question, in case anybody's out there, how is that plan to block AI robots helping you now? because I was never a supporter of that decision. A lot of people in our industry said, yep, we got to block them. Can't have that. Nope. Don't want to support that. Don't want them stealing our content. Don't want them taking our ideas. Don't want us, don't want them training on my content. I've never really believed in that. I've never really thought that my content was so precious that, a human should see it, but a crawler shouldn't. But why Google over anyone else? You've literally backed yourself into a corner where you will not get traffic from one source. And if your traffic goes away from the other source, you lose. I've never seen that as a winning proposition. And now, with all of the data showing consumer use on these tools and the tools themselves ramping up, I just can't imagine that that's anything other than a short-sighted decision. And I think that as we look toward whatever we're going to be called, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of acronyms. I'm already sick of the industry trying to come up with new ways to describe what we do. Everyone's trying to be the inventor of the new acronym and whatnot. I don't care. What I care about are results. And in order to get to results, you have to know what work to do. You have to know how to optimize. And if you're going to talk to me about technical SEO, as we've all noted over the last 30 years, I'm falling asleep. This is not the approach, okay? You have to wholesale change things, which means at a company level, you may need different employees with different skill sets than what you have right now. At an agency level, you will offer different services and you will have to hire different skill sets in order to offer those services to your clients. Your reporting will change. You will have to define new metrics and make sure your clients understand the value of those metrics and then refine that over time. This is where we are at. I think of it as the very beginning of SEO was a complete mess. It was a dumpster fire happening inside a goat rodeo. We were all of us running around crazy with different ideas and whatnot. And it took years for us to centralize on core themes and core ideas that we all knew worked. And then we came up with this basic outline of what this was. And look, if you're new to this space or you've never come across this, track down Brett Tabke way, way back. It's got to be 100 years ago now. He released 26 steps to 100K a month or 100 a day. Look up that concept. It was a checklist, and it was probably the first of its kind checklist that we used as SEOs of doing work each single day, all during the month. And that accrued to actually better rankings, and that gave us more traffic. We are at the beginning of that all over again right now, because I can assure you, AI doesn't read the same way you and I do. It doesn't assign value the same way you and I do. That catchy hook, that concept that the ego hook, the emotional hook, the anger hook, all of these things that we've been chasing for 30 years in marketing doesn't matter to an AI. They don't care. They look at that and they go, fluff, useless words, doesn't give me what I need. I need data. And if
No,
you're not lining up with that, that's a fundamental failure.
in fact, in one of the concepts that I don't know if you read my long guide about how to use semantics, there are two concepts. But one was actually suggested to me by the Dijon SEO, and the other one was already in my guide. But one is monosemanticity. So the necessity of being clear, totally clear, without any possible disambiguation problem when you are creating content for it. But the other one was suggested by Dan Petrovich, and he was saying it even more important than everybody's talking about causing similarity. Actually, the LLMs don't use that causing similarity. They use attention mechanism, and boom, attention mechanism. And so I started to study it, and what the hell attention mechanism is substantially nothing else than being able to convey the attention of the reader about a topic, different part of a long text, for instance. And that is substantially being a good writer if you're writing content, or being a good video maker. So this is a way that I found to explain things easily in plain words that my clients can understand. Because if I needed to talk to them because there is a formula called like Italians, you see? What the hell are you saying? And yeah, I totally think, in fact, I read your Substack, this your article about the difference between SEO and AI search, and how
Right.
also you should allocate differently the budget because of the things are how things are different.
Yep.
It's interesting. It's interesting because this really it's not really changing, but it's changing. But what I was seeing the big difference is somehow the crappy thing of SEO is not useful anymore, and for me this is an advantage.
Okay. I want you to think of something because everything you're saying, I agree with, I understand it, and I support that perspective. I'd like you to add something to your thinking here, which is you're going to be the best writer, you're going to be the best video content maker. All of that makes absolute sense. What if your audience is not just human? What if your audience is now an AI agent? This is a fundamental change because how you write for a human and what a human values is very different than what an AI agent values. As we, and I will call us SEOs still because we haven't really come up with a different name yet, as we continue to guide companies forward, we have to guide them toward this two audience concept. What is a human? Yep, that's great. And this is how humans consume concept or content and like to consume content. But we also have to produce content that is liked and consumable by the AI agent. And there's a very important reason for that. It's not pandering. It's the same methodology that drives us to apply EEAT logic to everything we build in terms of written content and the actual branding and positioning of a company and all of that. The fact of the matter is that these AI agents act as a filter, and that filtering is similar but different to search. Search is all about here are a bunch of answers, go take a look, and you tell me which of these is the best for you. That concept, and we're talking about 10 blue links here, right? Which is old, but still very much in play. That makes the human asking the question do a lot of work. I have to, and I don't read, but I scan down. I have to identify something in this list that you've given me. I will take an action and click on it. I will then have to go consume whatever that content is on that web page. You're seeing a lot of the reasons why Google and Bing rank things the way they do in this process, right? Trustworthiness of a domain, ease of consumer consumption of the content when it lands on the page, content above the fold, all of these changes that have happened in search that SEOs have had to deal with have literally come as a result of improving everything on the website. Now, if you're talking about an AI agent, I'm asking it to find me a source for something. This morning, you mentioned I was doing work on a part for a guitar for one of the custom guitars I sold recently. And I needed to figure out how to remove chrome from a piece of metal. And I know I could just grab my grinder and grind it off, but that's, a pretty inelegant approach, which incidentally is the exact approach I took because the other approaches that are more elegant are also toxic with chemicals. I didn't need what I needed in that was the list of a few options of how I could do the work because I know that I have the type of acid on hand and I have the hardware on hand to do the work. But I just want a quick overview of what the best solution is here. I don't need anything other than that. So that AI system, and I'm using ChatGPT for this, that AI system literally is my filter against everything on the internet. I don't need everything on the internet. I need it distilled down to a small answer that's easily consumable so I can get on with the job that I have. And I think that's a really important inflection point today because that's what AI overviews is designed to do. That's what Copilot Answers is designed to do. It's what ChatGPT is doing. It's what Perplexity does. But it's not about making the human go do the work anymore. And just to be clear, humans are inherently lazy. And I say that not because you're lazy, I'm lazy, we need to be more active or anything like that. Okay. I'm talking about lazy in terms of our brain is the most voracious organ we have in our body in terms of consuming calories. It is hardwired into our DNA to limit the use of that, because that means we need to go do more hunting and gathering, which exposes us to more danger. And this is a genetic level cycle that humans still operate through. So we are programmed to be lazy. When you give me an answer through an AI system that is plausible and proven trustworthy, and I know is good, I'm not going to go do the work of clicking through links or looking for anything. That's laziness at a human scale. I'll just take the one answer and move on.
Yeah, yes. And that's why I think Syndigram we were discussing was saying that what we are seeing in Google now is just an inter-kingdom, inter-reign interface between the old and what Google is. What Google already show us in the video trailer of last Google I/O. They show in the trailer of Google I/O
Oh,
2024. It's not already here. It started to be here because yesterday, for now that we are recording a few days ago, Google show how in AI overview you can play with the receipts card and select change the different type of cookings or different type of calories or culinary need. So that was in that example that Google showed last year. So that's why I think that actually AI mode that is in test is what is going to be then, when the test is finished, to be pushed in the classic search. Because it's everything you were saying, because it's an agent. It's predictive and it's based on all our search history that Google has trillion bytes of our history. And that is why the biggest fear I think Google has is that the government of the United States tells him to sell Chrome. Because
that's it. Look, I will tell you, one week from today is Google I/O. That's our new, when we get a look at all of this. I think
hold
that
on.
Google.
Today we are recording in May 14th. So 1 week from
Okay.
now.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. So about a week from now, Google I/O will be going on. I think that we're going to have a very different view of what's happening in search with Google. I do believe we're going to see a lot more integration with AI and answers. I think a lot of what's been going on behind the scenes, there's kind of parallel tracks, right? There is figuring out the technology on one side and making sure that it's usable and trustworthy and repeatable and scalable and all of that hard work that actually has to happen for the concept of information retrieval to be reliable the way it always has been for consumers, right? Google set a high standard and they need to live up to it as well. And they know that. So they're going to work really hard on making sure that is maintained. On the other side is the need to protect revenue and the need to monetize this new path. And what does that look like? And it's not simple for Google. It's not easy. We don't live in the days of there's an ad block and people just come in and buy ads and that's all it is. Google literally has to go out and explain to its advertisers why something new is important and better. And that's not an easy thing. And that takes months and months and months of conversations with the largest ad management companies and tools and systems and agencies and ad buyers and everything. And so I think from a timeline perspective, what we see makes sense, but we're really going to see something different, I think, when IO happens in 2025. I think we are definitely going to see a change here. And I think they know they have to, because again, you've got ChatGPT, you've got Perplexity. Perplexity is not on the same growth curve that ChatGPT is, but like in February to March, I think ChatGPT doubled from 400 to 800 million weekly active users. I mean, just like, what? Like that growth is unprecedented. When you look at the graphs of it, nothing has grown as fast as that in our history. That's a real threat to Google, not because ChatGPT is search. It's not because of that. It's because ChatGPT changes the behavior of how people search. So if people think they're getting the answer, they're happy with the answer. And that's a big deal. So the idea of being able to go in and look at a search result and then change the recipe ingredients in that AI powered search result, that's great. But again, humans, lazy, don't burn calories, won't do the work. Simpler is better. And I think that this next IO, we're going to see some very big changes.
I totally agree. And I think back a little bit talking about advertisement.
Uh,
I don't think it's casual, but Google just announced a few days ago AdMax, which is
This is
which
not
is
coincidental.
AI super powered AI advertisement.
Exactly.
Because I think that if Google is able to make understand to advertiser that in a that feeding ads contextually and very precise, super targeting the experience of the user when he's using and searching for information,
Right.
and not just because you had bid for a keyword.
Mhm.
It's more effective and
Yeah.
it's maybe going to bring you more conversion
Yeah.
because you are really consistent and you're really relevant for the, that moment of a search journey.
So I'm
Obviously,
gonna
it still will need, I have to legally to put commercial advertisement ads. But we know how
right.
Google plays with, we were designed to make this kind of notes
Yeah.
very, very almost invisible. But
So
it's,
I'm gonna blow your mind with an idea right now, Gianluca, because I see this as a potential future for us that is months, maybe a year away. So this is going to combine a lot of things that we have today. So we have Meta Ray-Bans, the glasses. We have other smart glasses on the market. We have Google's, oh my, what's it called? Their big goggles, their AI goggle, whatever they're called. I can foresee a world in the very near future where these devices, not the Meta Ray-Bans, because they're not constructed this way, but the next generation could be, where we have eye tracking that is already available and built into some smart glasses. That eye tracking will be able to pinpoint what it is we're looking at. And these AI systems will be smart enough to be able to call forward advertising based on the instant we are looking at something. So if we're walking down the street and we're window shopping, you're looking for a new pair of shoes, you look in the window,
that's
you will
Minority
immediately,
Report. You
right,
remember Minority Report of a sequence
exactly,
of Tom Cruise entering
exactly.
the shop when he's running and all the
Yep,
advertisements say, hello, how are you
exactly.
doing?
Exactly. The difference being that this will be contained to our device, not the world around us. However, there's nothing stopping it from going to the world around us because that device could just as easily, through RFID or any other means, broadcast who we are and then show us those other pieces externally. I think all the pieces are there. I think that it's the kind of change that people who are doing SEO now, working on keeping businesses relevant in front of consumers, you need to be thinking in that direction. Not because maybe someday that crackpot Duane was right. And look at that, we have ads in our glasses and it's, Ready Player One and that kind of thing. It's not that. It's that these are the types of logical leaps that these companies are making to prepare themselves in case the market becomes viable. And then if they think there's enough of a market there, they will work to make it viable. So then your work as an SEO is to ensure that that business remains relevant in a way that gets them included. That assumes that the concept of organic stays with us. Because if the concept of organic goes away and it all just becomes paid, subscription, no advertising, you want it free, you get the advertising. If that's where everything moves, then organic will be a very nice bracket of time that was 30 years. And boy, was that fun. But I think that it will be around for another 30, maybe 300.
Yeah, yeah. And thinking forward actually is one of the purpose of the search session. Not,
Mhm.
I personally, as you know, always tell to the guest that we are not going to talk tips and tricks for this moment. I really want to
Right.
create a conversation that is giving hints of potential futures. And
Mhm.
so for us to start thinking and prepare ourselves. I would love to continue another 1, 2, 3 hours with you because it's
It's
really a
always
pleasure to
great,
talk with
Gianluca.
you. But let's go to this end. And before
Mhm.
closing with a due salute, I want to ask you a few questions. Very
Certainly.
fast, very short question, personal, but uh, if you don't want to answer, you are totally free not to answer.
No
But
worries.
it's a way for knowing better doing. We know that you
Mhm.
are a grown professional certified pilot, that
Mhm.
you have this hobby of creating, crafting guitars. But when you were a kid, what was your b- preferred hobby, things to do?
The things that I like to do most, obviously creating guitars, I enjoy that. That's very, very creative pursuit. I do read a lot. I probably read somewhere around 2 to 3 hours a day on average. And that's everything. That's business reading, that's personal, that's fiction, all that kind of thing. For those who do know about this kind of thing, I was an original fan of the Murderbot series, and Apple has released a TV show based on the books. So gives you some insight into where my head is in fiction. I operate a YouTube channel called at Dirt Sandwich. And that is where I catalog all of the camping trips I do around Southern California and Nevada and any of the areas around here. So if you ever want to see what it's like going camping with me, that's where all the videos live, is at Dirt Sandwich. I generally I have more than enough hobbies to keep me busy. I used to have 3 motorcycles and whatnot in my life. I've since moved away from those, but still a big fan of automobiles, things that are mechanical, stuff like that. Travel is obviously something that I love because I love going, and my favorite thing to do when I travel is after I get checked into my hotel, I go to the local grocery store and I look around the local grocery store and I buy a couple of things because I want to know what it feels like for locals in that neighborhood. I want to know what they're exposed to. I want to see what it is, understand the differences and the similarities. And always a thrill for me to go do that.
I also know that because I saw them, you like to do photo, especially
Oh, yes.
astronomical photo. What
Yes.
was your most magical night in this
Okay.
sense?
The most magical night was probably also the most hateful night. I was camping. We were at almost 11,000 feet where our camp was set up. So 11,000 feet, I'm going to do this math backwards. It's somewhere maybe around 4,500, a little less than 5,000 meters. So very high altitude. It was extremely cold. It was below freezing. I could not sleep. So I woke up at 2 a.m. and I sat outside with 8 batteries for my camera, and I killed every one of them, taking long exposure shots of the sky. I got 2 photos out of it that I liked, and I will always look back on that and say it was one of the most relaxing times that I had. I was the only person up at camp. It's the middle of the night, watching satellites, it was just such a beautiful night to be out there. The air is very crisp. It's only the sounds of the nighttime forest around me. And I absolutely love that. The only change I would ever make is in the future, I want to get a Starlink set up so that I can upload immediately from the field.
And last question. What can make a very quiet Duane enrage all of a sudden?
Okay. So if you really want to push my buttons, start talking to me about search that's out of date. Start talking to me about information that is old, and start proving to me that you are not looking forward and learning. That drives me crazy. I don't understand it. We have access to all of humanity's knowledge. And when somebody willfully stops themselves from learning, I can't deal with that. I don't understand it. That's it. Or if you're in my home and it's quiet, when my dogs start barking because a bird landed in the front yard. with either one of those two things will get me upset. My dogs bark for absolutely no reason. And one starts, then the other one barks because the first one barked, and they just keep going. And there's not enough patience to deal with that.
Okay. Thank you, Duane. It has been a pleasure to spend this hour with you. Let's
Oh,
let's
Gianluca, thank
promise
you.
to have a second appointment maybe later this year. And
Absolutely.
let's see
Absolutely.
what we were thinking. Let's see.
Yeah.
Ciao. And
Thank you, sir.
for your friends, just do me a favor. Ring on the bell, give a like, and subscribe so you can be updated for the new episodes whenever they are coming out. Take care and ciao ciao.